Coffee is the world's most popular beverage. Over half of the adults in the United States drink coffee every day. About $18 billion is spent upon coffee yearly. That's around 336 million cups of coffee.
Over the last 15 years or so has been this sort of incredible burst, this rise of coffee shops and coffee houses, all over the place.
There are 16 coffee shops between South University and Main Street in Ann Arbor, including Starbucks, Espresso Royale, Comet Coffee, and Bert's Cafe.
On average, I probably drink 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day.
I go to Starbucks like 3 times a day, and I order like 4 shots of espresso each time, so that would be 12 shots of espresso a day.
I drink this amount.
That's it?
I don't drink coffee. I've never really drunk coffee. I never got addicted to coffee as a student or anything like that.
About 3 cups, which would be about 3 of these.
Probably less than $15 a month.
Per day, probably around $15.
I personally love coffee shops to study in, and it's a great place to study with friends. So I find myself going to coffee shops more often than I would, which then, you're there. It's like you're kind of more inclined to buy coffee. So I think that sort of aspect forces it. If I'm studying in the library really late and I feel myself crashing, then I'll run down and get a coffee.
Starbucks is far too loud to study in. I get coffee every time I'm about to go to the library and study, though.
I have a lot of grad students who are writing dissertations who try to write their dissertations, right, in a coffee shop. For me, this is insanity.
Most people have a unique response to caffeine.
I'm very sensitive to caffeine, so I can easily tell in the mornings, especially how strong the coffee is. One day, the coffee was made really weak, and I literally had to drink 4 or 5 cups in order to get the jolt.
I am the outlier in my family. Not coincidentally, I'm also the calmest and mellowest person in my family.
Before I drink coffee, I'm just sort of out of it. I just need it to sort of wake me up. If I don't drink coffee though, if I were to go an entire day with no caffeine, I get severe migraines and pretty much can't function at all.
I don't feel like myself without drinking coffee. Well, when I don't drink coffee, I get a horrible headache, and it's miserable. I don't sleep, ever.
I don't drink any caffeine past, I would say, 4:30. And I stick to that because I really won't sleep.
If you're not sleeping at night, and then you'd be catching naps during the day, and then trying to survive to stay up late to study, 1, 2, 3 a.m., and driving kind of past their natural circadian rhythm cycle using caffeine. We've all met the person that can drink massive amounts of coffee. They've built up maybe somewhat of a tolerance. It doesn't faze them in the least. They can fall asleep at the drop of a dime. And we've met people who had that single cup of coffee, and if they have that afternoon, they can't go to bed.
I don't necessarily find my addiction to caffeine unhealthy.
No.
Obviously, it's not great to have your body be addicted to anything.
I just know that I don't feel like human without drinking coffee.
10.
A 12.
I mean, coffee is more than just sort of a active consumption. It is an act that's bigger. It's bigger than that. Say do coffee is to actually sort of open up a kind of universe of possibilities that's not there in I drink coffee. That's a certain kind of act, and to do coffee encompasses that bigger, wider social world.
And coffee has antioxidants in it, so it is a good thing to use. They have some research, although we have to say it may be helpful in the prevention of diabetes and other things. Moderate doses keeps you a little bit more awake, a little bit more alert. For athletes, and especially long-distance runners, using caffeine can actually increase their efficiency.
What you get for consuming coffee is you get an experience of bonding with other people. I think it's really important. And that's where you see students doing things much, much differently than they did when I was a student.
Students are often seen in the library, streets, or in dorms with a cup of coffee. It's an essential part of everyday life in the mind of a college student.